Hello, grade 5. How are you? Today we're gonna start chapter 6, lesson 3, the Southern Colonies. Let's check its map. Listen, guys, here is the map of America. And if we speak about the Southern Colonies, we're gonna zoom in this part. This part is the Southern Colonies, okay? So when we zoom it, we have these are the states of South America. We have Maryland, and then Virginia, and then North Carolina, and then South Carolina, and here is in the south, Georgia, okay? All the south, as you can see, located along the Atlantic Ocean. And here is in Georgia, we could find what Jamestown. This is the first European colony in America. Okay, the first English colony in America was Jamestown. It was here along the James River. Okay, let's start and let's see how all of these states or how these colonies were established. Number one, Virginia. Virginia is the first one, as you can see. This one is here. Okay, so listen, guys. When the first colonies of the English, okay, the English people, when the first colonies arrived Virginia, they didn't find gold. You know that the English colonists arrived America in the beginning searching for gold, but they didn't find gold as they expected. So they started plantations. Plantations here means what? Plantations means the big farms, the large farm which crop was raised, okay, is called big farm, means plantation. Why they started plantations? Because as we talked before, the South has a rich soil. It's good for farming. When they didn't find gold, they start planting the soil. Okay, so the workers of these plantations in South America, most of them were indentured servants or African slaves. Okay, so now who started plantations? The English colonists. And most of these English colonists, guys, were rich English people. They were white, of course, okay, and they were rich. So they couldn't farm by themselves. So they need farmers. From where they brought those farmers from? South Africa. Okay, so most of the farmers who worked on these plantations were enslaved Africans. Okay, they called those enslaved Africans indentured servants. So what I mean by indentured servants, I mean the enslaved Africans. So the owners of those or of these plantations were wealthy. Okay, why? Because also they were planting special kinds of crops, which is the tobacco, rice, and also cotton. But the most famous crop in that time was tobacco. Tobacco was a cash crop, means a very expensive crop. And they started when they started the planting tobacco, guys, they starting to export tobacco to England. Okay, it means to sell tobacco to England, and they made money and became very wealthy because of planting this kind of crops. So the owners of these plantations were wealthy. Wealthy here means rich. Why? Because they planted tobacco and rice. Okay, the next title we have today, governing the colony. How they, when they established Virginia and established many or a very big number of plantations, how they governed this colony. Listen, guys, in 1619, the colonists created the first legislature in the colony. What the meaning of legislature? Legislature, it's exactly like the idea of assembly in the middle colonies. You remember in chapter 6, lesson 1, I told you that the governors of the colonies established assembly, okay, and the members of this assembly were called representatives. Here's also what's like assembly or parliament or congress, okay, it's called legislature. So the legislature is a group of people and they have power to make and change laws. Okay, this legislature in the South also has another name. This name is called House of Burgess. Why? Because the members or the representatives of this legislature were known as burgess. Okay, the colonist guys could vote and be elected in the legislature. And those representatives, guys, most of them were the planters or were the owners of the plantations. Okay, and most of them, as I told you before, had property and they were rich because they planted tobacco and started to export the tobacco to England. That's why they were wealthy. This is how they started Virginia. So generally, Virginia was the place where the English colonists started plantations and they brought the indentured servants or the enslaved Africans to work as farmers. And how to govern Virginia, they established legislature exactly like the idea of assembly, and those people are responsible to make and change the laws. Okay. Number two, Maryland. How they started Maryland? The colony of Maryland started in 1632. Okay. In that time, King Charles I of England gave the land of Maryland to Cecilius Calvert. Cecilius Calvert, guys, he has another name, Lord Baltimore, and he was a Catholic. You know that most of the English colonists were Puritans. But here, this guy, Calvert, was Catholic. And Catholics were all the time in conflict with the Puritans. Okay? So here, the Puritans in England punished those Catholics for their religious beliefs, and those Catholics, they needed a safe place to practice their religion freely. What the meaning of refuge here? Refuge here, a safe place. So here I said what? I said that Calvert made Maryland a refuge. Refuge means a safe place for the Catholics to practice their religion freely. So in 1649, the government of Maryland passed the Toleration Act. Act means law, okay, that allowed all the Christians to practice their religion freely. So the idea of Maryland came from that the Catholic wanted to practice their religion freely. So most of the colonists who went to Maryland in that time, they were Catholics and they wanted to practice their religion freely. Okay. After that, the Carolinas. The Carolinas, guys, here I mean North Carolina and South Carolina. Okay. In the beginning, it was one region. So in 1663, King Charles II of England started a new colony, which was يعني located South Virginia, and this land was called Carolina. In the beginning, it was one region which was called Carolina. The colonists first settled in the southern part. So Southern Carolina was settled before North Carolina. Why? Because South Carolina, guys, had good farmland, okay, and also fine harbors. And all the settlers in South Carolina started their rice plantations. Okay, but what about North Carolina? North Carolina has a few harbors and its land not good for farming as in the south. So the north grew slowly than the south. After that, in 1729, Carolina became two colonies, North Carolina and South Carolina. The last state we have today, Georgia. Okay, how they established Georgia? In 1732, King George, okay, so it was called Georgia related to King George. King George II started the colony of Georgia and give this land to the lawmaker and the army officer, which was called James Oglethorpe. James Oglethorpe, guys, was a kind officer. What did he make? He made Georgia a place for the poor people. He made Georgia a place for whom? For the poor people and the debtors. Who were the debtors? The debtor is a person who owes money. For example, now if Mrs. Mayada took money from Yasin, for example, okay? After that, Mrs. Mayada said to Yasin, I'm gonna give you the money back after 2 months. The 2 months back, and Mrs. Mayada didn't have any money to give it to Yasin. Okay, so Mrs. Mayada will go to be jailed because she couldn't give back the money to Yasin. Now Mrs. Mayada is a debtor. Okay, so what the meaning of debtor? Debtor means that the person who had to give the money back to the person who took the money from. Okay, so now I'm sorry, guys. So now Oglethorpe offered a free trip to Georgia, okay, to those debtors to work there in the plantations of Georgia and started a new life instead of being jailed in England. And here is your book mentioned what Oglethorpe had done in Georgia. What did he do? Number one, guys, he made friendly because he was a kind officer. He made friendly relationships with the American Indians who lived before the colonists arrived America. Number two, he made strict rules for the colony. How these strict rules? Number one, the colonists who lived in Georgia couldn't drink alcohol. Next, the Georgian colonists couldn't own slaves, so no slavery in Georgia. After that, the Georgian colonists could elect their own legislature. Okay, but after that, guys, all of these rules didn't last for a long, and they were changed, and many slaves were allowed to work on the Georgian plantations. And quickly, Georgia became exactly a wealthy plantation like South Carolina and like all the South states. Okay, so watch the video again, guys. And if you need any question about lesson 3, contact me anytime. Thank you, grade 5. Hope you feel safe at your home and see you soon, inshallah. Goodbye.